On today's episode of Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali.
Who can I be to get that love and acceptance that I so deeply crave? And there comes that sense of shame and guilt that why am I not worthy just as I am? I think one of the biggest things that I try to say to everybody around me is to start watching what you say to yourself. Become your friend. Forget about trying to get validation from other people.
Hello, remarkable woman. I'm your host, Dr. Connie Kerali, medical doctor, life coach, and survivor of sexual violence. And you're listening to Speak Shame, a collection of inspiring conversations with remarkable women who have faced and overcome adversity. By sharing their stories, my hope is that you may find strength, connection, and hope in your own journey, and that shame itself loses its power. So sit back, relax, and don't forget to follow the show. Joining me on this week's episode is the lovely Jeannette Hounjet. Jeannette is a certified She Recovers and Heal Your Life coach, Reiki Master, and passionate self-advocate for women in recovery. Through her work with Now She's Living, Jeannette helps women reclaim their light, rediscover their self-worth, and create a life that they truly love. And as a speaker, mentor, and workshop leader, she combines the transformative teachings of Louise Hay with her own personal journey of healing and empowerment. Jeanette's mission is to guide women on their path to unshakable self-love, helping them heal, grow, and thrive. So thank you so much, Jeannette, for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Lovely. Well, do you know what? I'm so excited to hear more about your story. And the way that I tend to start off this podcast is by asking, if your life story was turned into a book, describe for me what would happen in chapter 1.
Yeah, but I think a good way for me to start in chapter 1 would be in the now, even with this conversation we're having right now, because so many twists and turns in the road, so many things had to happen for this moment to be possible. So many moments of courage. So starting with the present would be my chapter 1. And then, the retelling of all the other moments. But yeah, I would start here.
Start right here. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? Let's jump right in then. So tell me about your journey. What's led you to where you are today?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing that led me to this journey was the realization that I was not happy. I was not comfortable with how my life was playing out. I felt a deep sense of something was missing, something was not quite right. And honestly, that made me want more, but I didn't know what it was. I was on this search, on this quest. Um, I don't know what it is, but I know that things aren't, they're not working the way they are right now.
Yeah.
So that, I guess the answer would be that question, what is missing? What do I want to be moving towards that I'm not doing at this point in my life? Right.
Yes. Yeah. And I think so many people who are listening will be able to relate with that feeling of something just not being right. And you talked about that question of what is missing, and what was the answer for you?
The answer for me ended up being my authenticity. I was imitating. I was living somebody else's dream, somebody else's life. I was not on my path, but I didn't know it. I just, I kept this feeling of fight or flight mode because like, what's wrong? What I didn't, I wasn't able to place it.
Yeah.
But when I finally did realize, like, I'm chasing somebody else's path, somebody else's dream, and I didn't even know what mine was.
Yeah.
But as soon
Yeah.
as I realized, hey, I can ask those questions, I can start on the path of self-exploration. Um, that was where a big turning point in my life came.
Mhm. Yeah. And so you talked about obviously authenticity, but living almost like someone else's life,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And what did that look like?
It started very early. Feeling of inadequacy, feeling somehow who I was not enough. So let me look around. Let me see what's accepted, what they're telling me. And it happens everywhere, Connie. It happens in school, your parents as well as they mean. Um, it happens through what we see on the media, magazines. Who can I be to get that love? That an acceptance that I so deeply crave. Um, and then there comes that sense of shame and guilt that why am I not worthy just as I am?
Yeah. And honestly, it really rings true that wanting to fit in, wanting to be accepted, and molding ourselves in order for that to
Yeah.
occur. And then you talked about authenticity. How did you take those steps towards authenticity? What did that take?
Well, let me tell you that those steps never end. It was, sort of a fork in the road, and knowing that it was going to take courage because I had to start by finding out who I was, finding out what lit me up. I had imitated for so long. I had accepted others people's choices as my own for so long that it started with self exploration and knowing that I was going to have to get on my own yellow brick road to find my courage, to find my heart, to find my strength.
Yeah.
So really, there's no clear and set of rules to do that. But I do think it begins with a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to come back home to myself, right? And so you begin by the search, by asking, by listening, and doing a lot of self soul searching for yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's so key that you mentioned that this is work that carries on. There's no end point to this. It's not like some quick fix. But
Yeah,
what would you say are some of the key changes that you've noticed in your life
yeah.
since you started on this path?
One of the biggest things for me was a sense of more peace,
Hmm.
even in moments where life shakes you up, which we all know that's going to happen. That's just part of life.
Yeah.
Of being able to deal with situations that, as a woman in recovery, for me, I was not dealing with in a healthy way.
Mm.
So that sense of being more centered and having more faith, I always love to talk about faith. It doesn't, whatever your higher power, whatever that faith is in you, but having that faith gave me such a sense of I can handle life now,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I would say, one of the biggest changes for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So you talk about finding this inner peace and the faith and knowing that you're able to handle whatever life throws at you. And I think when I talked about the work that you're doing now, what what led you to that point where you thought, actually, yeah, do you know what? I want to help
I wanted
other
to,
women. How
yeah.
did you get that?
So when I started on my path, one of the things I wanted to know everything. The quest began. So I came across Louise Hay,
Mhm.
and Louise Hay is a spiritual teacher. She has passed, and she talked a lot about self love and how basically all the root of all the other causes is the lack of self love and self worth. And that deeply resonated with me. It scared me a little bit as well. But so I became certified in for coaching program and workshop leader program, and started doing the work for myself initially. And as I saw what it brought to me, looking around at the women in recovery that I was sitting alongside rooms in,
Mhm.
I thought, and it's not just, okay, I have a problem with substance misuse.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
what's behind that,
Yeah.
right? We are just using this as a coping mechanism. And so one of the big things that I kept asking myself, because I had been in and out of the rooms at the time, and I kept saying, well, I'm sober. Now what?
Mm.
Now where do I go from here? And so the journey to self love and reclaiming my self worth was what became my now what. That was the step.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really thought, this is what I want to do. I want to do this for myself for the rest of my life,
Mm.
but I want to do this with anybody who is also looking for their own journey, right?
Yeah, and I think, do you know, I can completely relate to that when you go through these sort of life-changing experiences, and that, "Where do I go from here?" And this is obviously something now that is your purpose. And linking on from that, for listeners who maybe haven't started their journey to recovery, aren't really sure, don't know what steps to take next, what would you say to a woman listening now, potentially if they're starting their journey?
Well, the journey out of recovery is a lot of people hear recovery and they instantly think substance misuse, right?
Mm.
That's the biggest thing that comes to mind. Uh, I'm going to go back and tell you a story about a pivotal moment in my life where I was searching for answers. Like, I know things aren't working the way they are. I want to change. I don't even know where to start. And I remember Marianne Williamson coming on the TV. Do you know who she is? And
Yeah,
she was, I think Oprah was interviewing her. And then somebody had mentioned her book and something else happened. And I thought, all right, Marianne, what are you trying to tell me? So I picked up her book, A Return to Love. And then and I read this phrase, she said, we are all in recovery from something. And that is a fractured sense of self. And that it really changed so many things for me because the recovery could look different for everybody. It could be gambling addiction. It could be a sexual addiction. It could be so many things, right? It could be anger, shame, guilt. So when you want to move further from that, when you want to, like heal really, what I would say is try to find ways to get back to yourself. So
Mhm,
for everybody, it's going to be different, right? I'm not
mhm,
here to suggest go to AA or go to this because as a She Recovers coach, one of the beautiful things of that organization is they have taught me about the individualized pathway of recovery, which means there is no one way.
yeah,
So as a self-love coach, I would definitely tell you that self-love work is revolutionary. It is absolutely life-changing. It has been for me. So I would start reading and I would see what you are drawn to,
mhm,
right? Pick up books. It's a journey. Pick up books, listen to podcasts, um, talk to somebody, right? Talk to a coach and see what resonates the most with you.
Yeah.
And then start that hero's journey for yourself.
No, that and it's you know what, you're absolutely right. It's the fact that there's no one size fits all. And so finding the right path for you, it may not be something that works for someone else, basically. So that's so key. And how would you feel? How do you feel like your journey has connected you to others who have faced similar challenges?
Yeah, that is definitely one of the most beautiful things that
Mm.
has come out of finding my voice and the courage to just talk about it. Because I have met other incredible women and people in general that are also out there recovering out loud, recovering so that people don't feel alone. So it has been a really beautiful process from sitting in shame and fear of, I'm a Latina woman. I was I grew up in Panama, and one of the biggest things was we do not say our problems and our we don't air our dirty laundry, and that really is so unfortunate because it keeps you isolated. It keeps you thinking you're the only one going through this. And so connecting with so many brave men and women that are sharing their stories has been amazing and has been life changing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that people really need to hear that because in so many communities where silence is really the key and keeping things to yourself and people sort of suffering in silence. Um, and just to see you as an example and hear your story as an example of actually what is possible when you find your voice again. And I suppose as well then, with those who are closest to you, did you find it was easy to open up to loved ones about your journey? How has that been?
I laugh because I was so terrified for so long. And I had created these stories in my head about how it would go or what would happen. And none of that happened. I was very fortunate that I felt very accepted. I did not feel judged. To be honest, like not many things changed.
Mhm.
Um, but here's the difference. That happened when I fully accepted that I was okay with it. I was still scared, but that I had made that decision that this is what I was going to do because I just couldn't keep it up inside anymore. It was stifling me and did not feel good.
Yeah.
So once I decided, then that was the reaction I got. There was other times in the past where I had kind of peeked out and then come back in and hidden again. And, then I had mixed reactions.
This and this is a really key point because it's that what I'm picking up from that is sort of self-acceptance as
Yes.
well, and how once you are ready, that actually that then kind of almost sort of releases that lifts that weight, and the
Yeah.
maybe potentially that pressure, as
Yeah.
well on
And you know
yourself.
what? Not everybody is going to be accepting, but
Yeah.
that wasn't what speaking about it was. It was for me, right? And then it became also to add my voice to all the courageous women that are sharing their recovery journey as well. But initially, I had to want to do this for me. I couldn't do it authentically for self acceptance or, sorry, for people, others to accept me. I
Mhm,
had to
mhm.
do it for my own, um, my own acceptance of,
Yeah,
I'm not what I did. I'm not what happened to me. I am not that. But I am also, I'm a woman that can stand here and speak about it openly.
Yes, yeah, and thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. And we start it's about talking about your chapter one, and your chapter one being a here and now and where you sort of come from. And tell me a little bit more about the story prior to that as well. You talked about this turning point and that realization of not living that authentic life.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that moment in your life, the build up to that, and what
Yeah.
it felt like?
Well, it was interesting because I never had a huge wrecking ball story of, how I had that uh, low bottom to come to recovery. It was this slow burn that just didn't feel good. It was like, I don't, I'm not really feeling good doing that. And so I would stop. This started in my 20s. And so I would stop. And then I wasn't really feeling good and um, sober either. And so then I thought, well, people are going to party, I'm going to drink. And later on, I, did other substances. So I wasn't happy on either side because at the time it was only about use it or you don't use it. That was my understanding of life. And then you just go about. Um, so that kept me in this long period of time of mediocre, like just okay, just good enough to be like, all right, well, I'm not that bad. And as I got older, I just thought this cannot be it. Right? Please. This. And so I thought it was really asking questions, wanting to know, deciding that I wanted to thrive, not just survive. That was the thing. I just felt like I was always like, okay, I'm just surviving. I'm just here,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And I did not want to live the rest of my life watching amazing stories on a movie or through a book. I thought, I want some of that magic in my own life, right? I want to find, and that magic doesn't necessarily come through, doing, you think, oh, I have to be this great CEO of something. No, but in having meaning in your life for yourself. So my life didn't have, besides my beautiful son, my life didn't have any great um, points of purpose that made me wake up in the morning uh, thinking, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. It was so it's that accumulation of moments, and
Yeah.
I think that's I really appreciate you kind of explaining that, because I think that for a lot of people, they might expect that, oh, yes, this is going to be this huge turning point and then I'll know. But actually, it's so lovely to hear that this realization, and you put it so nicely, this not wanting to just be surviving, but thriving in life, really encapsulates that wonderfully. And I think people will hear this and say, "Okay, I'm kind of going through these changes," but perhaps they've got people in their life who are saying, "Oh, well, just have another drink or do this or what." How do you navigate having people in your life who you love, potentially who maybe aren't necessarily supportive of the
Yeah.
changes that you're making?
Yeah. And that happens very often.
Mhm.
A lot of the times when we are in those in our active
Mm.
usage, let's say, or addiction, we surround ourselves with other people who are doing the same. Or there can be family dynamics. I'm from a big Latin family, and drinking is a part of the culture and for celebrations and things like that. So, you have to find your support groups. If you need a mentor, if you need a coach, go after that. And knowing that you will have to change environments.
Mm.
You might not be able to change that family Christmas dinner, But it will be hard, at least in my experience, to be sitting at bars at the beginning, be going out with your friends, to doing the same things and sitting in the same environment where those types of behaviors, whatever you're trying to avoid, were happening. So for me personally, I had to step back. I had to sort of come back to myself for a while until I can find new activities, new groups, and new people to share with. Because as well, you cannot be going for support to your other friends that are drinking and that are still not at their change moment,
Yeah.
right? They're not
Yeah.
ready, whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. It's, they will not be able to be your support group.
Yeah. And I think that is really kind of important for people to hear as well, that there's not necessarily going to be this easy path and everything just changes and the
Yeah.
next day you wake up. And you're absolutely right to say that sometimes, yeah, you need to find new avenues of support.
Yeah. And don't give up because back 25 years ago, I went to my first AA meeting.
Mhm.
And, we all know that AA is widely known. And it was at the time for me in Panama, the only thing that I did know about. But I struggled. I went into the rooms. I came back out of the rooms. This is not for me. I couldn't relate. There was other aspects of it that, although it is wonderful and it helps still to this day so many people, it just wasn't for me. So what I would say is try everything. Try, and I'm not saying try everything from the beginning. I'm saying try this. If this doesn't resonate with you, we are so lucky today. Try there's Smart Recovery, there's She Recovers. There is any number of places that you can find something that feels nurturing, that feels good, that feels supportive to you. So we're very lucky at this time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So key. I'm sure my listeners are, are making notes, I'm sure, because I think that's such a valid point about it. Again, not one size fits all, and don't
Mhm.
feel like you need to give up if this doesn't work for
Yeah.
you. You can, there's lots out there to experience. Would you say there are other key things that you would want our listeners to take away? Um, Anything else that you feel like along this journey you'd like to impart and share?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I try to say to everybody around me is to start watching what you say to yourself.
Mm.
Become your friend. Forget about trying to get validation from other people. First, really guard your thought. I don't think we realize how hard we are on ourselves. And I mean, for me, that was such a big game changer because I honestly had no idea of how many uh, negative thoughts were going through my mind on a regular basis. Wake up. Oh, well, I don't look good. Or it's this endless chatter. So I would say that my biggest advice to everybody always is at least start with awareness of that
Yeah,
and
yeah,
see, do I like what I'm saying to myself? Right? Is this supporting me? Or am I just putting constantly putting myself down without even realizing it?
yeah. Mhm,
So yes, that's part of the very beginning of doing the self-worth, self-love work for me,
mhm.
is noticing how you speak to yourself on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
yeah, so true. And I think diving deeper into that, what would you say are practical steps? Because you mentioned awareness,
Yeah.
that at least knowing that that self-talk is negative or derogatory towards yourself. What are the following steps from that once you've realized that actually I don't like what I'm saying to myself? How
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you work on that?
Well, it was funny because at the beginning I thought, okay, I read that and I did the Heal Your Life certification. I'm like, I got this. I got this. I'm going to see the thought. I'm going to change it. How hard can it be? Oh my God. It is a constant. Sometimes I'm like, really, like, you need to stop this. So it's taking it lightly, right? Like, don't get down on yourself about it. Know that it is sometimes a minute to minute thing. Sometimes when fear creeps in, I notice that, the chatter gets louder. Know that it's not just like, okay, you made the decision and now you can change it so quickly because there's years of conditioning, there's years of practice. Um, so be gentle with yourself. I love mirror work. Louise Hay was a big proponent of mirror work, which is really looking into your own eyes and your own reflection and reaffirming, you know, I also like when they say reparenting yourself to tell yourself these things, because sometimes that what you're saying to yourself are not just words, they're what your deep-rooted beliefs about yourself are. So you need to start reframing, repatterning those things, and it will take time. I don't want to say it's like it's going to take forever. It depends. It's different for everybody, but it will take time. So be gentle with yourself. With that comes affirmations. I think a lot of people think, well, maybe affirmations, well, they don't work. But the thing is, we are a society that's been conditioned for instant gratification.
Yes.
And it is a journey. This is your journey. If you have to say affirmations for the rest of your life, then good for you, because it's such a wonderful tool to have. So when you notice a thought, it's not just, okay, goodbye thought. I don't want to, it's how can I speak kindly to myself? How can I lift myself up? And you can do that through the affirmations as well, saying what you want for yourself.
Yeah. And for people who are listening who maybe, have not had any previous experience with affirmation, could you give an example of something potentially that you use or have used in the
Yeah.
past?
Well, at the very beginning, it was, I am worthy of recovery. I am
Mm,
worthy of love and respect. I am worthy of healing. And I realized with the words that I decided to use that I hadn't been feeling worthy of those things,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So those were big ones for me. And the reason I told you that it could be a forever thing is because I still use them. I still sometimes feel like, you know, I didn't do that right. Well, I am
Yeah.
worthy of grace,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think that people will really resonate with that vulnerability of actually this isn't just you do it for a week and then it's gone. You've done all the work. You're still going. You find that there are times when you still need different tools, and I
Yeah.
think that's great to hear because I think for so many people, um, when you're starting on a journey or whether you're in the journey itself, and you want an end point, and you want to
Yeah,
be
you're like,
like,
where does this train get off? Where's my destination? But I'm gonna say the most beautiful thing of this and what really inspired me to make this my life's work is because I thought, great, I can do this forever, right? Like this doesn't end. It builds on itself. It
mm,
just gets better. And so for me, a beautiful thing, like the thing that I liked about it was that there was no end. There is no, okay, well, I healed, I'm done.
yeah,
It just
yeah,
goes deeper.
yes.
So
Yeah.
I thought that's what I want to do.
Yeah. People are listening to this now thinking, "Oh my gosh, I wanna work with you, Jeanette." We're gonna find out how they can do that. But I'm gonna first of all, I wanna know because I'm all about sort of remarkable women and you are one of them, Jeanette, and I think it's
Thank
always
you.
lovely to hear who if you had to name one remarkable woman who has inspired you, and you've talked about some other women today, but it could be them, it could be other women. Um, so yeah, who has inspired you? Who's your remarkable woman and
Yeah.
why?
There's lots of women that I can talk about. And, this may sound corny, but it's my mother. It is my mother.
Oh, yeah,
And,
that's lovely.
her journey has been different than mine. However, the resilience,
Mhm, mhm.
the strength, that is, for me, something I learned later on. I did not see this as a teenager. I did not appreciate this in my 20s and maybe even my 30s. But now I go, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's my remarkable woman.
So thank you, Jeanette's mum. Thank thank you so much. And yeah, for people who are listening to this, who are interested in what you do, in She Recovers, in the Heal Your Life coaching, where can they find you? Um, yeah, what resources can they use?
Yes.
Tell me all the things.
Okay. So I founded Now She's Living. That's my company because, it's time for all of us to start really going after that life we love. So it's nowshe'sliving.com. And I have the same name across all the different platforms. So on Instagram, it'll be at Now She's Living, as well as on Facebook. And I do coaching, mentoring, workshops, and I'm also starting a membership for women in recovery to sort of you relearn how to do life, right?
Mm.
With that core piece of self-love. So yeah, I would love to talk to anybody who's looking for a little bit of more love and healing in their lives.
Oh, you're gonna be inundated, I'm sure. No, thank you so much. And I kind of want to make sure as well before we come to an end, if there's anything that you feel like, yeah, I actually really wanna just talk about this before we finish. Is there anything you want to say before we bring this podcast to an end today?
Yeah, well, you know what? One of the biggest things when I started the story at the beginning of if I had a chapter one, it would start not only in the now, but with this conversation that we're
Mm.
having. I think it is so important to have more of these conversations. So really what I want to say is thank you. Thank you for creating this platform. It is so needed and it gives us all a chance to put our voices out there. So I am so thankful that I was able to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeanette. I'm really grateful as well. I really appreciate you giving up your time and sharing your beautiful story. And I'm going to make sure I put all of your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you.
Thank,
Uh, it's been a wonderful experience.
thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali. And thank you so much to Jeannette Hounjet for being my guest on this week's show. Please take a look at the show notes for information on Jeanette's social media handles so that you can connect with her. If you'd like to join the community, head over to @Dr. Connie Kerali or @SpeakShame on Instagram, or join the private group Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali on Facebook. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get a new episode every other Thursday. Until next time, take care.